Okay, so today I'm going to be sharing my #1 favorite drugstore makeup product in every category. A few weeks ago, I did a video on my favorite drugstore launches of the year, but those were all products that actually launched in 2023. And today's video is a mix of like newish favorites, but also just a lot of older staples. I narrowed it down to my actual favorite product in every category. And I thought instead of just sitting here and talking about them, I would actually apply them on camera and show you what they look like. So I'm actually going to start with a lip oil. There are so many good lip oils at the drugstore these days, and it was kind of hard to choose my favorite because I feel like I've been reaching for quite a few different formulas, but I think I have to go with the Milani Fruit Fetish lip oils. This one is in Blackberry Agave. These definitely have the best scent. Out of all of the lip oils at the drugstore, they have a really sweet, almost like candy-like fruity scent. So they smell good, they feel good, they're very lightweight. They definitely have more of like a gel-like texture, so they are shiny and glossy, but they're not too thin or too thick. They fall right in the middle. Okay, let's start with the face. I was kind of torn between two different primers. They're both from e.l.f. I love the Liquid Poreless Putty Primer. I've actually almost used this up fully because I use it so often. It is a little bit of a newer launch. It came out in 2023, and it really has been my go-to, but I think I have to go with the Power Grip. This one is the pink one with niacinamide. They're very, very different formulas. The Liquid Poreless Putty Primer has more of a matte feel to it. It's very silky and really smooth. And this one is also really smoothing, but it definitely has like a tacky feel to it. It's one of those gripping primers. It's a little bit sticky, but I love the version with niacinamide because I do think it makes my skin look extra glowy. I like to really work this product into the skin, so my face might get a little bit red, but I find that that is the best way to apply it rather than just kind of like smoothing it on and moving on. I feel like if you really work into the skin evenly, you're going to get the best results. It's a really nice hydrating primer. It leaves my skin looking glowy. Like you can see the difference where I applied it. I don't have any on my forehead yet, so it's amazing. But because it does have that gripping aspect to it, even though it's glowy, it's still going to lock your makeup into place really well. I'm also going to be using all affordable makeup brushes, so I'll link the ones that I'm using in the description box below. So for foundation, I have to go with my absolute favorite, the Catrice True Skin. This is my favorite foundation of all time, drugstore or high-end. It's really affordable. It's $10. I've repurchased this so many times over the years. I think I first tried it, I always forget if it was 2020 or 2019 or 2021. But the reason why I like this one is because it's very adaptable. So if I pair it with the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer, it's going to look a little bit glowier on the skin and feel a little bit more hydrating. But if I pair it with the e.l.f. Liquid Poreless Putty Primer, it looks really matte on the skin. And I feel like a lot of foundations are like that to an extent, but not quite as much as this one. Like it truly is a very adaptable formula. It has good coverage. I find that it looks skin-like. It wears really well throughout the day. Now, Catrice is not sold at the actual physical drugstore here in the US. They used to be sold at Ulta. Now you can find the products directly on their website or on Amazon, but I still consider them a drugstore brand. I know they're sold at drugstores in other countries, and they definitely keep their products affordable. At least I think they're still sold in drugstores in other countries, unless they pulled their products from all stores and they only sell online. If you live in a country where Catrice is sold in person, please let us know just because I am curious. I didn't actually include a powder foundation, but if you're curious to know my favorite in that category, it's definitely the Essence 16-Hour Cover and Last. That looks so good on the skin. I like the e.l.f. Camo powder foundation as well, but the Essence one is just extra smooth on the skin. It has really nice coverage. For a powder, it is not drying at all. Like it definitely has more of a natural soft finish to it. So I love that one. Is this foundation looking a little bit yellow on camera? It's not yellowy in person. In fact, one of the reasons why I do love this foundation so much is because it is such a good shade match for me. And that makes a big difference when it comes to complexion products. Like you can love the formula, but if you have a hard time finding a good shade match, whether it's too light or too dark, or it's just like a little bit too neutral or yellow, sometimes that will not necessarily like make or break the foundation, but you might not love it as much as you would if it was like a perfect spot on match. As for concealer, I am going to go with the Catrice True Skin Concealer. So it's from the same line, but it is a very different formula. This one is in the shade Cool Cashmere. This is definitely a thin, super hydrating concealer, whereas the foundation is slightly thicker than this. And it definitely, has a little bit of moisture to it, but I would say it leans more natural, sometimes even matte, depending on what you pair it with. Whereas this one really is super hydrating. It really is such an effortless formula, though. Like it just melts into the skin in the most beautiful way. And this concealer is $6. So really, really affordable. I usually apply a little bit to my forehead and my chin as well, just so everything looks really even and seamless. So for powder, I have to go with the e.l.f. Halo Glow Setting Powder. I have so many powder favorites, and I like them all for different reasons, like depending on the look I'm going for, which products I'm using them with. But when it comes to a loose powder from the drugstore, this one is my, oh, I just got way too much. This one is my favorite because it is so light, really pretty, very soft and natural on the skin. And I'm just going to focus it like right directly under my eye. It's such a pretty powder. It definitely has, like when you apply it, there is a matte finish, but it's a really natural, soft matte finish. It's not too heavy. It never looks cakey. It's just very natural and really soft. So I feel like this is a really good option if you're someone who doesn't typically like powder. Like if you're like, I'm not a powder person, I don't like the look of powder, the feel of powder, but you also still feel like you could benefit from powder for whatever reason, this is the one to try because it is so beautiful and soft. So for bronzer, I do have two favorites because I have a cream and a powder. My favorite cream bronzer is the Makeup Revolution Ultra Cream Bronzer. So I initially thought they were maybe discontinuing this because quite a few shades they weren't just out of stock, they were no longer on Ulta's website. So I really thought that was a sign the product was being discontinued. But I checked not too long ago and it looks like they put them back on there, which is really good news because this is such a good formula. This feels like a high-end formula. Like I would really pay 4 or 5 times the price. I'm glad I don't have to. It's an $8 bronzer, but I would be willing to because I love it so much. I pretty much always use it with this brush. It's the e.l.f. Complexion Duo Brush. This is a perfect brush for cream bronzer, cream blush, even foundation, to be honest with you. So I usually go in with a good amount, and then what I'll do is take my foundation brush and just whatever's left, I'll kind of go over the edges to kind of tone things down. This is a pretty pigmented formula, so you really don't need a lot. And I think if you were to use like a beauty sponge, you would get more of a sheer look. I just prefer to apply my bronzer with a brush. But it really is so beautiful. Like it just melts into the skin in the most natural way. Even if you would not consider yourself a cream cheek fan or like a cream product fan, I have a hard time believing that you might not even like this a little bit because it is so effortless to work with. I can have a tendency to go overboard with bronzer, so I usually just, like I said, take my foundation brush, go over the edges just so everything looks a little bit more blended and seamless. I'm just going to take a little bit on the opposite side of that e.l.f. brush, and I've kind of been using it to not like full on contour my nose, but a little bit. It's a little bit too warm to be like a really good contour shade, but because it's what I use pretty much every day, I will just take a little bit on my nose just to kind of create the illusion of a slimmer nose. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of that e.l.f. powder and set the rest of my makeup into place. If I was using cream blush, I would apply the cream blush first, but I think I'm going to go in, well, I already know I'm going to go in with a powder blush today because that is my #1 favorite. Okay, so for the brows, I'm going to be using the NYX Thick It Stick It Brow Gel, which is my all-time favorite. Again, drugstore or high-end, it really doesn't matter. This is my go-to. This is actually a newer one, so the formula is still very, very wet. So you just have to be careful in the beginning not to over-apply it. Even if you scrape it off, I feel like you can over apply it until it starts to dry out. So I just usually run it through and then I comb my brows upwards and then I let them dry. Honestly, if you have sparse brows, I don't know that there's another brow gel out there that makes such an instant difference. Like there is an immediate difference. I wish this is what my natural brows looked like. So I only had to go in with like a little bit of a pencil or a pen to fill them in. But I'm really glad this product exists because it does make a difference. And it's just, again, very long wearing. So let me just apply this to the other brow. Okay, I'm actually going to come back to the brows after they have a chance to fully dry. Let's do the eyes. So I did not apply eye primer. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. I used to always apply it like every single time I did my makeup. Now sometimes I'll just go over my eyes with, or my eyelids with my foundation brush just to kind of cancel out any redness, and then I'll just set that into place. Eyeshadow palette was a really easy choice for me. It's kind of like a boring, safe choice, but it really is my number one palette at the drugstore. It's the e.l.f. I Love You a Latte palette. It is a 4-pan, fully matte palette. You have a really light tone that I'll typically use to set my primer into place or foundation, whatever's on there. And then I'll also use this as a brow bone highlight. 2 colors I'll use in the crease or as transitions, and then a dark brown that I'll use in the outer corner or as liner. I've actually repurchased this quad so many times because I hit pan on the shadows all the time. And then usually once you hit pan on them, they start to crumble and break apart. So I always repurchase it. It's like a $4 quad. The quality is really nice. It's very easy to work with. And I like the e.l.f. bite-sized palettes as a whole, but this is like my number one favorite drugstore palette. Another alternative, or not another alternative, I guess like second place or what I thought of next would have been the Flower Beauty palettes. Like their 6-pan metallic eyeshadow palettes. Desert Lights is so stunning. I love that one. And honestly, I probably could have gone with ColourPop too. ColourPop doesn't tend to be my favorite brand for eyeshadow in, at least right now, like in 2024. So I guess I couldn't really have gone with ColourPop, but they were for a really long time. And I do still think, you know, their eyeshadows as a whole are good. I'm going to go with this one, which is slightly cooler. And I'm just going to blend this into the crease. So today's look is not going to be anything too dramatic, but I really truly wanted to highlight like my absolute favorite products from the drugstore, and this little palette comes in handy so much. The first reason being I don't always take the time to do like a very intricate eyeshadow look. I definitely still like playing around with eyeshadow, and I have days where I'll do something a little bit more dramatic. But when I'm in a hurry, I just like something quick and easy. So I'll either just blend bronzer into the crease, or I'll take this palette. And even when I'm in a hurry, I usually do still apply a little bit of eyeshadow because I like it. I think it makes a difference. And when I have extra time, that again is like one part of my makeup routine that I really like to focus on and create like a little bit more of an intricate or a fun look. But I love this palette because it's great on its own. It's also nice to pair with other palettes that are maybe just missing like 1 or 2 of my staple shades. Okay, so that's pretty much where I'll stop with this shadow. Let me just do the other eye. I'm just going to take a touch of that dark brown and lightly blend it into the outer corner. Not too much because I'm not going for a super over the top dramatic look today. Just a little bit to add some depth. And then I'm going to go over the lid with a shimmer shadow. So for the lid, I chose the ColourPop Super Shock Shadows. Again, one of my all-time favorite drugstore eyeshadow formulas. I think I'm going to go with the shade Ritz, which is very beautiful. This is the one that a lot of people say is a dupe for Urban Decay's Moon Dust Shadow in the shade Space Cowboy. They do look very similar on the lid. This formula is a lot different than Urban Decay. Like it's almost the exact opposite. Urban Decay's formula feels really dry. It's not even like a pressed glitter. It feels like a pressed matte shadow, but it looks glittery on the eyes. It's really weird, really interesting. It is gorgeous. This one is a very creamy shadow that dries down to more of a powder finish. So I do prefer this formula to Urban Decay because I find that it stays in place better and you get more of an even look, a little bit more of an intense look. I am a diehard Super Shock Shadow fan. I love the Super Shock Shadows so much. They just look so beautiful. And they're great if you're doing more of a simple look like I am today, but they're also really nice layered on top of other shadows because they have that creamy texture. You can do like a look using any palette and then just add like a touch of this on top and it takes your look to the next level. I'm just going to take a little bit of that matte brown, the lighter one on the lower lash line, just to tie things together. I actually don't have a favorite liquid liner at the drugstore right now. I'm just not wearing liquid liner like I used to. This is just the brown shadow from the palette. I'm just going to lightly line my eyes with it. Nothing too intense. And then I'm just going to create like a very subtle wing. I like the look of eyeshadow as liner because it is so soft and it still helps to define the eyes. It's just not as harsh as like a black liquid liner. Okay, let me finish the brows before I apply mascara. So once the brow gel completely dries, I usually just take a brow pen. This is my number one, the NYX Lift and Snatch Brow Tint Pen. It does such a good job. It is a very pigmented formula, so you have to have, or you have to use a light hand, unless of course you want more of an intense look. But I love this formula. I feel like it lasts a really long time. Like this pen doesn't dry out as fast as others do. And on top of that, they have a good shade selection. Like some drugstore brands do like 2 or 3 colors. NYX has quite a few. So I don't always use a brow pencil. Sometimes I will take one if I feel like I could use a little bit more shape to my brow. And if I just want to kind of like define underneath, or if I feel like the pen looks a little bit too harsh, it's nice to take the pencil and kind of comb it out and then go over it with the pencil. This is the micro brow pencil in the shade Espresso. So I'm going to take a light nude pencil liner right on my waterline. My favorite liner formula for the waterline is definitely the ColourPop cream gel liners. There are so many good pencil liners at the drugstore. It is a category that I don't typically buy at Sephora because there are just so many good options that are really affordable. And I love these. When they first launched, I feel like they got some bad reviews, but they're always like reformulating, changing up their products. And I want to say a few years ago, they redid the line and they're very creamy, very rich, easy to work with, and they stay in place well. Again, mascara is a category that the drugstore just does really well, kind of across the board. My favorite drugstore mascara is the Milani Highly Rated Anti-Gravity. So I've had this one open for a little while. I feel like it might be kind of dried out, but I'm going to apply it because it is my number one favorite. It's a very dramatic formula, so it's great because you do get volume. It makes your lashes look super thick, really, really long. It can get a little bit clumpy if you over apply it, but I feel like you just have to know when to stop. Unless I am looking for like a super dramatic look, then sometimes I don't mind a little bit of clumpiness if it looks really, really dramatic. But I do like this one because it layers really well. It builds really nicely. Okay, so what do I have left? Oh, my favorite powder bronzer. It looks a little bit rough because the top broke off, but this is from Flower Beauty. It is the Heatwave Luminous Bronzer, and this one is in the shade Sunrise. So I usually do take, I want a fluffier brush. I'll just use the brush I use for powder. I usually take a little bit of this, like even if I apply cream bronzer, I'll sometimes take a little bit and just add this on top. I love the tone of this because it has like a little bit of a red tone to it. So a lot of the time I'll actually use this in place of blush and just use it as like a blush bronzer all in one. But this is really nice on its own too, even without the cream underneath. So my favorite blush at the drugstore is definitely the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blush formula. I think I have pretty much all of them at this point because when did these launch? I want to say like the beginning of 2023. And then every month or every 2 months, I would end up purchasing another shade because I just love them so much. Now, some of them are a little bit glittery. Some don't have glitter in them. So I do recommend buying these in person if at all possible because you'll be able to see. Like this shade Pink Flush has actual glitter in it, but this shade Shimmery Rose doesn't. So it kind of depends on which one you end up going with. I think I'm going to take a little bit of Pink Flush. I don't normally love glitter in my blushes, but I don't know. I feel like on the cheeks, it doesn't really show up that intensely. I just like the tone of this one because I don't want to add too much blush today, just like a nice soft wash of color. These are really, really beautiful. They're very lightweight, really natural. They do have like that touch of glow to them. And I know everyone is all about the cream and liquid cheek products right now, but if you are a powder blush fan, I think you'll love this formula. It just looks healthy and they are buildable, so you can go in with more if you want like a very intense look, or you can obviously choose a deeper shade. For highlighter, my favorite liquid highlighter is from Flower Beauty. I think that is such a good option if you're looking for an affordable liquid highlighter. It looks amazing on the skin. It definitely has like a very smooth, seamless finish. But this year, my favorite highlighter was definitely the Essence Pure Nude. I have tried this on and off throughout the years, and there are definitely times where I prefer it and times where it isn't my favorite. I really like this right now because I am enjoying like a very subtle highlight. I don't usually reach for anything too over the top most of the time, especially because I do wear a lot of glowy cheek products, whether those are like creams or powders. I do feel like a lot of my cheek products give me the glow I'm looking for, so I don't need to add like a ton of highlighter on my skin. And the Pure Nude Highlighter is just so subtle, really beautiful. It's very hard to go overboard with this product. Like you really can't over apply it. It just gives you such a gorgeous glow. So I am a big fan of this. The only thing I wish, or the only thing I would change is for them to launch additional shades. I think they have one other shade available on Ulta's website. They used to have more back in the day, but I would love to see them come out with a ton, just like they have with the Pure Nude Baked Blushes. Again, lip liner is a category the drugstore does so well. I could probably do like an entire video of my favorite lip liners, but that might be a little bit boring. So I'll share my top favorite with you, and that would be the ColourPop Lippy Pencils. These are very, very creamy. I don't think they are the longest lasting lip liners I've ever tried or that I have in my collection, but I like the fact that they are so creamy because they're very comfortable. I think one thing that really sets the ColourPop lip liners apart for me is the fact that they have such a good range. So they have a ton of nudes. They have light nudes, medium toned nudes, deep nudes. They have pinks and purples and berries, and really like every lip color you could imagine. Anyway, my two favorite shades are BFF. I've gone through so many of these. This is like a light nude. It's a little bit warm tone, so it's perfect for warm lips or like warm makeup looks. And then I also have a Cool BFF, which is a cooler kind of like taupe nude. I think I'm going to go in with Cool BFF for today's look just to kind of match the eyes. And I'm not sure what I'm going to wear on top. I do have a lipstick favorite to share with you and a lip gloss favorite as well. My favorite lipstick formula at the drugstore would be the e.l.f. Eau Face Satin Lipsticks. These are so good. They really do feel like high-end lipsticks in my opinion. And I think they are absolutely worth trying if you're a fan of just like a regular lipstick formula. They do have a really nice soft satin finish, so they're not overly creamy or shiny, and they're not too matte. I'm going to apply a little bit of the shade Dirty Talk, which is a really pretty like light pinky nude. I feel like this is the shade that a lot of people say is a dupe for Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk, but now I'm not 100% sure because I don't have that one. That looks really pretty on its own. I think I will apply a little bit of lip gloss just so I can use all of my favorites in today's video. I think my favorite lip gloss from the drugstore would be the NYX Fat Oil Lip Drips. They kind of market these as lip oils, but I definitely think the formula is like a traditional lip gloss, but it's almost a little bit better. These actually stay in place pretty well. They are very, very moisturizing. So even once they wear off, my lips feel really good throughout the day. They look a little bit intimidating in the packaging, but they're pretty sheer. So I think I'm going to add just a little bit of the shade Status Update. I don't want to add too much because I don't want to completely change the lip color, but I feel like a little bit of this will actually be perfect. I love these over lipstick, but also on their own because they are really, really comfortable. Okay, so this is the final look using all of my top favorite drugstore makeup products. There are so many good products at the drugstore, and honestly, it was fun just to sit down and use them all at once because normally I'm like testing out new products, using a mix, and I feel like the look came together really well. So I would love to know which products you love from the drugstore, your number one favorite in every category or some of the categories. So let me know in the comments below. And if you like drugstore makeup videos, I've filmed a couple of recent ones on my channel that I'll link for you on the screen, but I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye.